Hello, I'm Austin, and I'm a Mormon. And I've got news for you, church. People are leaving you. Like, a lot. Let's talk about it. Okay, first of all, thank you for watching. This is my first YouTube video, and for those of you who are familiar with me, you may have followed my blog in the past. So what I'm doing now is, instead of writing the blog posts, I'm going to be doing them in a video format here on this YouTube channel. So if you used to follow my blog and you've been thinking, hey, where are those posts? Subscribe to this channel, and then you can now follow what I'm talking about. Okay, so people are leaving the church. So what? Well, there are two things that are unique about the way people are leaving the church today. First is the sheer number of people that are leaving. It's very possible that the number of active members of the church is actually decreasing. The second thing is the reason why people are leaving. Greg Trimble is an LDS blogger whom I don't know. So consider this free publicity, Greg. You're welcome. Now, Greg wrote an article called "You Should Not Leave Mormonism for Any of These 5 Reasons." He has spent a lot of time talking to family and friends of people who have left the church. And in his experience, these are some of the main reasons that are cited for why people leave the church. Now, if you believe that the church is true and everything that it says it is, then the points that Greg makes in this article, I think, carry a lot of weight. It doesn't matter if you don't understand everything, because this is salvation at stake. But what if the church weren't true? Or what if you didn't believe that it was true? Let's take a step back. Say you're involved in some sort of social group, some organization that meets on Thursday nights, and you read books and go bowling and eat hot dogs. So if you are a part of some social group, and someone else in the group, or especially if it's a leader in the group, or someone who makes a lot of the decisions, if they're rude or offensive to you, and you don't feel like you belong, or you don't feel included in the group, then that's a perfectly good reason to not keep going. Now, if you don't believe the church is true, if you don't believe the church is everything that it says to be, then for you, it really is little more than a social organization. And the things on this list basically, for the most part, amount to not fitting in to the social group. And for many people, I think that's exactly what's going on. People are leaving the church because they flat out do not believe that it is true anymore. There are plenty of people that don't believe the church is true, but I'm talking about people that have grown up in the church, fought for the church, graduated from seminary, served a mission, married in the temple. And it's not laziness, it's not sin. They have simply completely lost their testimony. They have completely lost their ability to believe that the church is true. So now you might be asking, okay, so how does that happen? And in my conversations with these people who have left the church, the story is usually the same. Much of this may sound pretty similar to your own story. They grow up in the church, they have parents who teach them that the church is true until sometime, usually in high school or maybe young adulthood, they decide they really have to know for themselves that the church is true. So they read the Book of Mormon, they think about the commandments, they study it, and they pray about it, and then they receive their spiritual witness that the church is true. Pretty soon they're faced with something that is pretty hard to handle. Maybe they hear some rumor about Joseph Smith or the history of the church or the translation of the Book of Mormon. Maybe someone asks them a question on their mission that they don't know how to answer, or they read something on Facebook that really questions their faith. And the usual response is, well, there are some things we can't understand right now, and there's some things that don't make a lot of sense, but we'll put them up on our proverbial shelf, and we look at them, we think about them, but we don't let that affect our day-to-day lives. We don't let that affect the basis of our faith and our belief. So we're encouraged to keep learning, to keep seeking truth. But we keep finding more and more shelf-worthy things And eventually, for these people who do end up leaving the church, it gets to the point that the shelf, metaphorically, breaks. And all the weight of all those unanswered questions comes crashing down, and they lose their faith. So, what can we do about this? I think that the leaders of the church are already pretty aware of what's going on. Elder Marlon K. Jensen got some media attention recently when he said that the church is facing a level of apostasy that it hasn't faced since the days of Kirtland in the early years of the church. Or you could look at Elder Ballard's Stay on the Boat talk from this past conference, which arguably was addressed to these people in the church who are losing their faith. There are new articles being posted on LDS.org that admit to and explain a little bit about some of the hard truths in the church's history, things that have previously been pretty much ignored. So often, though, there are still many things happening that I really think are more hurtful than helpful. I know plenty of young people in the church who have expressed doubts about their beliefs, but are frustrated because they don't feel like they can talk to their parents or their church leaders. They feel like they will be shamed for not believing. Or when these people do finally talk to someone about their doubts, the person they're talking to may have never heard about these things in the church history. They may have no idea how to address them or talk about them. And the person goes away with no answers, often feeling abandoned or alone. I think, though, the worst thing that we can do is when we don't have the information, we don't know the answers, is to try and make something up. This is what I like to call bad apologetics. Some people, in trying to explain hard parts about the church's history, will make things up and try to explain what happened without all of the facts, or flat out lie about what actually happened. So it turns out that many millennials, that is, people of the younger generation today, are leaving religion in the United States. And that is all religions. John Pavlovitz is another blogger, a Christian blogger, and he writes an article that I think is very insightful and very applicable to us in the Mormon Church, even though it is written more generally for Christians. And he explains 5 reasons why people actually are leaving the church. And again, it's not because of sin or temptation or lack of understanding. I encourage you to give this article a careful read and maybe think about some of the ways that it applies to the Mormon Church, and think about some of these old cultures in the Mormon Church that are maybe pushing people away, and what we might be able to do about it. So ultimately, my advice for anyone that's asking is to try and build a more open and social community where it's okay if you don't believe. A place where you can talk openly about your doubts and your questions, where we can admit the actual problems that exist in the history. And I think that if we could create a place where non-believers and ex-believers still want to be, even if they don't believe, then I really think that will be better for all of us. So, what do you think? Why are people leaving the Mormon Church? Why do people leave any church? Leave a comment below and let's talk about it.